The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Trevor, I don't have any sources, but I have a lot of insecurities, and something is telling me, based on what I just heard, and again, my insecurities, that Thatcher Demko is not coming back till January of 2027. Well, I mean, 2025.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, Demko's not healthy. Kyle's an emotional wreck, and we're here to get through it on Locked On Canucks. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host and also a Canucks writer currently with a Daily Hive in Vancouver. Before we get into today's shortened bonus episode, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because this is your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe and like on YouTube. And on the podcast side, go leave us a 5-star review. Why don't you? All right, Thatcher Demko, we know it. He's not healthy, but Kyle, you're hearing some things. You're feeling emotional, and you feel like this team's going to get Kevin Lankinen in some way, somehow, eh?
Yeah, and I'm honestly not hearing anything really new. I'm just hearing Rick Dhaliwal do his weekly bit on Halford and Brough again, and the emphasis on the importance of getting Kevin Lankinen done and making sure they can do so by saving some money, by waiting right till the end of training camp to save some money by getting Tucker Pullman on the LTIR at a certain time, like all these mathematics, again, doing all this work, all this effort, stressing over so many things just to make sure they get a pretty good backup in the door while they already have Arturs Silovs. And I get it, you gotta protect Arturs Silovs, right? Give him some, backup, ironically. But man, oh man, something in Rick Dhaliwal's voice told me, and I know this is coming off Elliot Friedman saying that, it's not like Thatcher Demko's going to miss half the year, but something is telling me he's going to miss like 20 games or 25 games. Whereas last week, I'm thinking he's going to miss like 6. So Kevin Lankinen, when they sign him, because I feel like it's going to happen again at any time now, I feel like he's going to be a big part of what the Vancouver Canucks are going to look like going into April based on the standings and whatnot, because it's a lot easier to pick up points in the beginning of the season. I mean, ask Canucks fans last year.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think your fears are validated in the sense that Demko, missed almost 20 games last season, right? It was maybe 15 or so before they rushed him back for the final 2 games of the regular season. The year before he missed, it was more or less like 35 games when he was out from December to about March there. So, look, your fears are validated in a sense, because Demko has been a goalie who just has refused to stay healthy. And you start to hear this stuff now. Jim Rutherford said it's popping up more so that, Demko overworks his body. The guy just wants to be back. He wants to be out there with the boys. He wants to be a major contributor, in which he is when he's out there. So you can get the push to get back, but you got to wonder, like, what is this guy's body like right now? I mean, he's still battling through knee injury. He's still not facing any pucks, hasn't faced any pucks since game 1 against Kevin Lankinen's Nashville Predators. It's been a long time since Thatcher Demko has been facing pucks. And now we got training camp, which is less than a week away, I might add. And this guy still is not really anywhere to be seen. So I think your fears are validated.
Yeah, I think they're validated too. And I just want the guy being healthy and whatnot and coming back, obviously, eventually. But the more and more I think about, again, Lankinen being here for more than just a pit stop kind of scares me, because Forbert, Desharnais, Tyler Myers playing a lot of minutes, Arturs Silovs being the number 1 goaltender. I have a lot of trust in him, but things are going to be different. And it's already harder to win games after you've won games, right? It's harder to stay at the top once you're at the top. And, the Canucks are not Stanley Cup champions or anything like that, but they did put up 109 points. They did they get to 50 wins last year? Like, they just, maybe like 48, 49, whatever the number was. Like, they had a really good regular season, one of the best regular seasons in franchise history, and they kind of came out of nowhere, and they've been good for 35 seconds. And here we are going with Arturs Silovs and Kevin Lankinen and Vincent Desharnais and Forbert and Noah Juleson all being big parts of the team. Now, before we get even deeper into this, and again, Trevor, just walk me off the I almost swore there, okay? I did kind of swear. Walk me off the plank, okay? This comes from Big Head Hockey, okay? And they just kind of had a little timeline of this whole Thatcher Demko fiasco, okay? And this is pretty much courtesy of 2024, okay? Nothing prior to that. But Thatcher Demko, okay, a top 3 goalie in the world by the trade deadline. He gets a knee injury on March the 9th. You guys remember that knee injury, right? Winnipeg Jets game. He seems to injured in the first period. He tells Casey DeSmith, hey, you might have to come in here. He still puts himself out on the ice and then gets, I don't want to say re-injured in the second period, but he's like, okay, enough's enough. Again, we're talking about this guy's attitude, right? Being that guy, being that dog, wanting to do the most. He gets injured in that game against the Jets. They tell us that it's going to be a 2 to 3 week injury. And Rick Tocchet's saying, yeah, I'm not worried at all. He's going to be back. And what happens? Thatcher Demko doesn't come back till 6 weeks. 6 weeks after the injury. And gets injured during game 1. And then everyone's telling us it's a day-to-day thing. And then he's supposed to return for round 2. And then he's supposed to return for round 3. And he's maybe going to play in game 7, though. But don't worry, he's going to be there against Dallas. And then we hear nothing. We hear nothing for 3 months other than Jim Rutherford, alluding to his work ethic and trying too hard and doing too much. And then Ian Clark gets demoted, and then Silovs is hurt, and now Demko is, I wouldn't say hurt again, but apparently going to be on the shelf longer than I originally assumed. And again, I just want this guy being healthy, but man, oh man, something in my gut based on, again, that timeline and the unpredictability of it is telling me that, Thatcher Demko may not be back till January.
Look, the amount of stuff this guy's gone through with his body is pretty incredible, right? We all know about the groin issue from 2 years ago, the knee issues, he had a concussion before. And people often forget that when he was still in college, he had surgery on both of his hips. At 21 years old, the guy couldn't even rotate fully. He was having back pain and groin pain because of his hips. And you have that surgery young and you can bounce back. And we're talking about something that happened now 8 years ago. But again, this guy's got a history of not being healthy and a history of his body letting him down. And you do think that now it's going to come into focus. And Dan Jardine kind of mentioned it in the comments. More and more, he's getting the vibes that Thatcher Demko has been worked too hard and now has an old man's body. Ugh. Look, I know it's a tough position to play goalie, but how many goalies at the age of 21 are having surgery on both their hips? Sometimes it's luck of the draw that you get in terms of health and the body you have. And, maybe there's a doomsday scenario here where Thatcher Demko his body has let him down in the past again. And, he's working with the best medical professionals in the world, but that doesn't mean you're immune to injury, especially when you play a game like hockey and when you play goal too. It's a very tough position on the body. So, oh man, I still believe in Demko to come back, but I also hear the concerns about is he going to be fully healthy? And look, I wrote about this for Daily Hive this morning. Should be out later today about Canucks who are at risk of regressing this season. Look, even if Thatcher Demko was fully healthy, he's going to be incredibly hard-pressed to replicate what he did last season. And that's not really a knock on him. He's one of the best goalies in the world. But look, over the past 5 seasons, there's only been one netminder who's been nominated for the Vezina more than once, and that's Connor Hellebuck. So even like the Vasilevskys, the Allmark, whoever else, the Sorokins, the Shesterkins, they all have only one Vezina nomination in the past 5 years. It is really hard to play at that level. And again, now you're in a situation where not only is Demko not healthy, but even if he was healthy, he'd be hard-pressed to replicate what he did last season.
And that's scary, man, because I think a lot of us have this intuition / assumption that, this Canucks team could pull off a miracle in year 2 of them being a really good hockey team based on how stacked they are and how stacked they are in the goaltending position. And that means that Thatcher Demko would have to be back to being a Vezina-like goalie. And now we're hearing things like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to have to learn how to play through the pain because there's no procedure that can help what's quote-unquote ailing him and all this jazz. And you know what? I wouldn't put it against him for him not being able to do that because he seems like a stoic. He seems like a competitor. He's an intelligent dude. He'll figure it out. We still got that elite goaltender, but man, oh man, the first half of the season, things are going to be different. If, again, my assumptions are right and my intuition is right, which I hope it isn't. Again, I'm just listening to Rick Dahlia while speaking. I'm getting scared, man. There's nobody scary in the world of horror than Rick Dahlia right now. For real. Straight up.
Yeah.
Guys absolutely vicious right now, okay? And again, the Canucks have not stopped their pursuit on Kevin Lankinen. They're trying to do whatever it takes to save some money, to have more money in the bank, to make that LTR mathematical equation thing work with Tucker Pullman, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's all this maneuvering, and instead of maybe focusing their energy on finding more defensemen, like they gotta do this. And it's interesting. Now, Trevor, like, how does this affect Arturs Silovs at all? You know what I'm saying? Mentally, I don't know. Like, he's got that one-way deal, but he's waiver exempt. I don't know. Is he feeling a way about this? You know what I'm trying to say? Because there could be a point in January where Demko comes back and now you got 3 goalies. And I would still put Silovs above Lankinen just based on what he did in the playoffs against Lankinen and the Nashville Predators. Like, that meant a lot to me. But yeah, what do you think Silovs' situation is like if Lankinen comes in and January rolls around? Am I just blabbering too much and bringing up some BS right now? But I'm just confused here.
So are you saying, like, if Lankinen starts season with the Canucks and Demko's out till January, like, what happens in January?
Yeah, look what happens. Like, let's say the Canucks are good and, like, Lankinen and Silovs, they're both doing pretty well. You know, the Canucks are doing well. They're outscoring their problems. And both these goalies, they're not bad goalies. They're not horrible goalies. We're not talking about Mike Smith here, right? We're talking about, you know, some skill here. I think Lankinen's actually worked with the Canucks' current goalie coach, right? This could work. Let's say both of them, again, are good by the time Demko comes back. Like, what if they demote Silovs because he's waiver exempt? You know what I'm saying? What would you do in that situation? Again, both goalies are good. Demko comes back. What do you do with Silovs?
I think there's 2 options, and I think this is from an asset management perspective. If both Silovs and Lankinen are playing pretty well and Demko comes back in January, I think here are your 2 options. You either got to trade Lankinen or you got to put Silovs in the minors. Because if both goalies are an asset, it doesn't make sense to lose an asset for nothing. Like, go let Silovs go dominate in Abbotsford and keep Lankinen up here.
I don't know about that.
Are performing well at the time. So your risk is that you waive Lankinen and lose him for nothing.
Who cares? I would give Silovs the most NHL time out of anyone, just in case Demko gets hurt in the playoffs again. You never know with this guy, and Silovs has that coolness about him. You know what I'm saying? Does Lankinen have that? I don't know. We haven't seen that. But a big reason why I think Silovs deserves more credit, and, you know, this whole thing about, what's his name, Askarov, whatever, that Nashville just traded to San Jose, like, this guy being the top goalie prospect in the NHL. Look, I know Silovs struggled against point shots against the Edmonton Oilers, like that dominant offensive team, that dominant power play team and whatnot. I know he wasn't the best in that series, but he was still miraculous at some moments. And he still won game 3 for these guys. For real. He was really good in moments. And then look at what he did against Nashville. Like, that is heroic stuff. That is some of the best goaltending performance you've seen in blue and green. For real. So if Lankinen plays well with the Canucks when he signs here, if he signs here, and January comes around and Silovs is playing well too, Lankinen's playing well, but now we got Demko, they got to get rid of Lankinen, man. Silovs has to be their guy, considering that, like, he may be the only guy in a couple of years.
Yeah, I just think there's not a rush with him, right? Like, look at the contract, look at the waiver exempt status. That's only going to last, I think, for another season. I know it's based on games played to an extent.
Okay.
I definitely lean towards the asset management point of view. Like, Silovs, he's going to be here for a long time. So to me, if you put him in the minors in January and keep Lankinen and Demko up here, I'm fine with that. I'm completely fine with that. Now, if Silovs has outplayed Lankinen, that's a different story. But if both goaltenders are comparable, or if Lankinen has outplayed Silovs, you absolutely put Silovs in the minors unless you find a trade partner for Lankinen.
And you know what? We have to believe or hope or assume that Lankinen can play as good as Silovs because, yeah, you know, you're Vancouver Canucks. Say what you want about them being stacked and all these things and having the Norris Trophy winner and 2 number 1 centers and Brock Besser on a UFA season and Jake DeBrusk and the best bottom 6 in the NHL, blah, blah, blah. Yo, this Vancouver Canucks team who has been winning for, again, Ryan Henderson said this, it makes a lot of sense. They've only been winning for 35 seconds. I'm telling you right now, this team in blue and green and black and yellow and red is still going to have to rely on really good goaltending to keep instilling winning culture in that building and just overall with the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from, bud. And let's touch on this comment from Andrew quickly. I see a few more of these in the comments about where's the money going to come from to sign Kevin Lankinen. So Canucks cap situation right now, they got $190K in cap space. That includes Tucker Poolman's $2.5 million cap hit. And Kyle, I know you were asking me this on the phone prior to recording, but, you know, basically, and Jim Rutherford said this, the Canucks want to keep Poolman on the roster and be under the cap with Poolman's contract before the season starts. And, you know, I'm not the smartest guy, not the best at explaining this, but, you know, basically cap space accrues daily and you have more flexibility and more cap space if you're able to be cap compliant with Poolman on the roster. Now, in the past, the Canucks have LTIR guys like Poolman and been over the cap. You just accrue less cap space daily. So it just give the Canucks more flexibility heading into the deadline, which means something when theoretically they should be adding a defenseman to stay under the cap. So I see exactly where they're coming from. And with Lankinen, here's the other thing about him. The guy doesn't need to come in on a PTO. You don't need to sign him before training camp. If he is still unsigned, I don't think there's any harm in signing him after the regular season begins. I don't think it's the guy that needs to come in and prove himself.
I think they want to bring him on a PTO because, again, they want to wait till like the roster cutoff is set for the season and then put Tucker Pullman on LTR before giving him an NHL contract because they want Lankinen to get, associated with the boys, associated with the goalie coach. Like, sign the PTO, come to training camp. We got a deal for you, but just wait till October. But man, oh man, like I honestly think if Kevin Lankinen, I'm being serious about this. Like, again, Trevor, before we leave, we're gonna leave in like 1 or 2 minutes. Can you just like give us his stats from last year? And I know like any team could have signed him, and like other guys, backups got signed prior to Lankinen being signed in October of 2024. But I have a feeling if this guy is going to sign a deal with the Vancouver Canucks, right? Then he knows, and his agent knows, unless Rutherford and Albina are savages. They did this with Phil Kessel, but if they sign Lankinen, it's kind of telling us, and there's a 50% chance I'm wrong again, that again Lankinen knows he'll be at minimum with the Canucks for a couple of months. Like, he'll be used for a couple of months. Like, Demko's not coming back on October 17th. You know what I'm saying? He's not coming back on October 28th. He's not coming back on November 4th.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, look at the stats from last season with Lankinen. It looked 908 save percentage, quality start percentage, right at the league average. So he was kind of, in terms of save percentage, a bit above league average. At even strength, he was actually one of the best goaltenders in the league last season. And again, he did so in limited minutes and limited starts because UC Stars was the most played goaltender among starters in the NHL. So, you got a guy in Lankinen who's proven that he can come in and give you some minutes. Look, he was pretty good during his rookie season in Chicago, where he started 37 games for a sad sack team there. I should say that the team actually, I believe they might even made the playoffs that season. Don't quote me on that. But look, this is a guy with experience. He's proven he can do it in the backup role and doesn't necessarily need to prove himself. And look, he's going to be playing behind a better defense than he played in Chicago for sure, and arguably a better defense than what he played behind in Nashville, although that's somewhat comparable to the Vancouver Canucks.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, man, sorry for my insecurities. Maybe I'm talking ish. If Thatcher Demko's watching this, he's like, dude, I'm going to be back in the middle of October. Can you just shut the beep up? I could see that because Thatcher Demko's super competitive, and I don't think he likes people talking down on his competitive nature or his name. And I'm sorry if I offended you. I'm just, again, worried because something in Rick Dollywall's voice told me that, again, Demko's going to be out for a couple months. Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, we're out of here. Trevor Beggs, say what you want. I don't want to get too depressing on here, so I'm going to sign out. Hit the like button, subscribe. One less to the Don't Doze Art Lab for giving us the space to give you this conversation. And Trevor, sign us out or do your thing. Say whatever you want.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm thinking about Demko. So again, I had him on my list of Canucks who I think are going to regress this season. Again, not to say he's going to be bad, but it's just hard to be the second best goaltender in the NHL year after year. So hit us up in the comments and let us know what's more likely. Is Demko going to regress, or can he prove me wrong, make me look like a fool again, and go maybe win that Vezina and prove everybody wrong? Because I think everyone's kind of doubting this guy based on the injury history right now. But that's all we got for this episode. Shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, first-time listeners, new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube. Wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening, we appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. We'll be back next week, or who knows, maybe even over the weekend. Maybe I'll be recording during a family trip, man, because we're addicted to this thing called your Vancouver Canucks. Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. Again, do us a solid. Make sure you go subscribe, like the video, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. But we got to get out. Peace.